Alright, y'all already know what time it is. Man, it's time for a reaction video. I've been dropping short, so y'all go watch them. You hear me? Yeah. Y'all go watch them. Creepy and darker reaction video. You already know how to do my reaction videos. The video link will be in the description below, so y'all can go watch and subscribe to his channel if y'all want to. I suggest y'all should. You know what I'm saying? Go subscribe to his channel. But anyways, we just about to get right into it. Like I said, y'all already know how to do my videos. Ain't no stopping, ain't no going back. We just gonna listen. I make these videos for white noise, for people that be at work or that's on the road that wanna, you know what I'm saying, just listen to my videos, or just, you know what I'm saying, or they wanna watch them at nighttime. They don't wanna watch it by themselves. You know what I'm saying, I'm here with y'all to watch it with y'all. You feel me? But yeah, we about to get into it.
The subtle creak beneath my feet, the whisper of stale air rising from a crack in the floor, the faint smell of brine that felt wrong. I had always been a fan of cruises. There was something magical about the open sea, the endless horizon, and the quiet isolation that came with it. But this...
And if y'all ain't noticed, all my videos is done from my phone. All my videos are done from my phone. We better get back into it now.
Cruise was different. I had boarded the MS Elysium for a much-needed break from reality, a 2-week journey through the Caribbean. The first few days had been nothing short of perfection. Exotic stops, lavish buffets, and warm nights filled with the sound of waves gently lapping against the hull. Yet by the 4th night, the ship began to feel different. It started with whispers. Late into the night, while I lay in my cabin, I heard them, soft, indistinguishable murmurs coming from the vents. At first, I dismissed it as sounds of the ship's ventilation system or the wind playing tricks, but they soon became more distinct. I could hear fragments of conversation, though no voices seemed familiar. It sounded like a group of people, but none that belonged to this time. Curiosity got the better of me, and on the 5th night, I ventured out into the corridors, hoping to find the source of the voices. The hallways were eerily silent, with only the occasional dim light flickering overhead. I could still hear the murmurs, distant but persistent, as though they were beckoning me. As I followed them, the ship seemed to grow colder, the air thick with moisture. I must have wandered deeper into the bowels of the ship than I intended, because the decor began to change. The vibrant, modern interiors gave way to something more antiquated. Old wooden panels, faded wallpaper, and brass fixtures that hadn't seen maintenance in decades. A strange sensation overcame me, like I had crossed a threshold into another time. That's when I saw it, the forgotten passage. At the end of a narrow, dimly lit corridor was a door, unlike any I'd seen on the ship before. It was made of heavy, weathered wood, with rusted metal hinges and an old-fashioned latch. It didn't belong on this ship. It was too archaic, too out of place. My gut told me to turn back, to leave this part of the ship and never return, but something drew me closer. I opened the door. On the other side was a stairwell, spiraling down into darkness. The air was colder here, thick with the scent of mildew and salt. The whispers grew louder, almost conversational, yet no one was in sight. I couldn't help myself. I descended the stairs, gripping the handrail as I stepped into the abyss. The stairwell led to a lower deck, a place not marked on any ship map I'd seen. The walls were damp, and the floor creaked ominously beneath my feet. I followed the sound of the voices, which had now turned into an unsettling chorus of sobs and whispers, leading me to a room at the end of the corridor. When I entered, the temperature dropped dramatically. My breath misted in front of me, and I could feel the weight of something watching. The room was vast, filled with old trunks and forgotten luggage, relics of a past long gone. The walls were lined with portholes, but when I looked outside, there was only blackness. No ocean, no sky, just an endless void. I was about to leave when I noticed something in the far corner of the room. A figure, small, hunched, and shivering. It was a woman, dressed in an old-fashioned gown, her back to me. Her hair was tangled, wet, and she rocked back and forth, muttering incoherently. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice trembling. She didn't respond. I stepped closer, my hand outstretched, and that's when she turned. Her face, oh God, her face was twisted in agony. Her eyes were sunken, her skin bloated and blue, like she had been pulled from the depths of the sea. She opened her mouth to speak, but all that came out was a gurgling sound, like water was trapped in her throat. I stumbled back, heart racing, as she began to crawl toward me, her bony fingers scraping against the floor, leaving wet streaks in their wake. The whispers grew louder, surrounding me, filling the room with cries of despair. I turned and ran, bolting up the stairs and slamming the door behind me. But the nightmare didn't end there. For the remainder of the cruise, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows lingered at the edge of my vision, and at night, the whispers returned, louder and more insistent. I avoided that part of the ship, but no matter where I went, the sense of dread followed me. I tried to talk to the crew about the strange lower deck, but they looked at me like I was crazy. According to them, no such part of the ship existed. They assured me that Miss Elysium was thoroughly modern, with no hidden or abandoned decks. But I knew what I had seen. I knew that somewhere deep within the ship, something ancient and terrible waited. On the final night of the cruise, I had a dream. In it, I was back in that forgotten room, surrounded by the portholes that looked out into the void. The woman was there again, this time standing by the window, her hollow eyes locked on mine. She raised a hand and pointed out to the darkness. I woke with a start, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding. But when I looked around, I wasn't in my cabin anymore. I was back in that room, the trunks, the portholes, the cold, damp air. It was all there, and so was she. Only this time she wasn't in the corner. She was standing right in front of me, her decayed hand reaching out to touch my face. I screamed and blacked out. When I woke, I was back in my cabin, the morning sun streaming through the window. I left the ship as soon as we docked, but I've never been able to shake the experience. Every night since, I hear the whispers, and when I close my eyes, I see her face, bloated, decayed, and full of pain. I don't know what she wants, but I know this. There are things on the Mississippi Elysium that don't belong to this world, and they're waiting. I couldn't let go of the experience. Even after returning home, the images from that night haunted me. I told myself it had to be a nightmare. Stress-induced hallucinations, maybe, but deep down, I knew that wasn't true. That woman, her gurgling voice, the cold air that seemed to cling to my bones were all too real. The whispers, however, were the worst part. They followed me off the ship. At first they were faint, barely noticeable. I'd catch a soft murmur while trying to fall asleep, or a distant whisper while working at my desk. They were always too far away for me to make out the words, but they were there, like an unwelcome presence constantly at my back. Then they grew louder. 2 weeks after the cruise, I was lying in bed, exhausted, when the voices erupted, this time from right beside me.
It was devastating when Terry's blood cancer came back.
I shot up, heart pounding, and spun toward the noise. My room was empty, but I could feel something, a coldness in the air, as if the room's temperature had dropped significantly. My breath hung in the air, misting just as it had on the ship. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I began my search. I needed answers. What had I experienced on the MS Elysium? Why did no one acknowledge that forgotten part of the ship? I scoured the internet for any mention of it, stories, articles, anything, but found nothing. It was as if the ship's blueprints had been meticulously scrubbed of any trace of that hidden deck. I joined forums dedicated to strange occurrences on cruises, hoping to find someone else who had experienced the same thing. Days passed with nothing but dead ends until one night, a message appeared in my inbox. "I know what you saw." My heart skipped a beat as I opened the message. It was from a user named C-Scribe. They didn't give any personal information, but the message detailed experiences eerily similar to mine. "The MS Elysium has a history," the message began. "There's a reason that part of the ship isn't on any map. It wasn't always called MS Elysium, you know. In the 1930s, it was known as the SS Marianne, a luxury liner with a dark secret." I sat back, my pulse quickening. The SS Marianne? I'd never heard of it. On its last voyage in 1936, the SS Marianne vanished in the middle of the Atlantic with over 200 passengers on board. No one knows what happened. There was no distress signal, no wreckage ever found. It just disappeared. But rumors say the ship was cursed. Passengers began reporting strange things. Whispers in the corridors, shadowy figures at the edge of their vision. Entire parts of the ship no one remembered boarding. Those who went to investigate never returned. Some say the ship didn't sink but crossed into another place, another time, one where the souls of the dead still wander. I stared at the screen, my mind reeling. Could it be possible? Had I stepped into some forgotten part of the ship's history? The message continued. If you've seen her, the woman in the gown, then you're already marked. She was a passenger on the SS Marianne, one of the first to go missing. She wanders the ship, searching for something or someone to take her place. Once she finds you, she won't stop. She'll follow you, in your dreams, in your waking life. And sooner or later, you'll end up back on that ship. A chill ran down my spine as I read the final words. There's no escape. She's coming for you. I slammed my laptop shut, my heart pounding. This had to be some sick joke, right? Some internet troll playing on my fear. But the memories of that forgotten room, of the woman crawling toward me, came flooding back. That night, I locked every door and window, double-checking them before going to bed. But when I lay down, I could already hear them, the whispers. They were louder now, clearer. I could make out words, though I didn't understand them. They were in a language I didn't recognize, guttural and sharp, echoing inside my skull. Then, I saw her. She was standing at the foot of my bed, her decayed hand reaching out toward me. Her eyes, lifeless and sunken, locked with mine, and the whispers grew deafening. I tried to scream, but my throat tightened. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I was paralyzed, trapped in her gaze as the room seemed to darken, the air growing colder and heavier by the second. In the silence of that moment, I heard her voice, clearer than ever before. Come back to the ship. I woke up gasping for air, drenched in sweat, my heart hammering in my chest. The room was empty. No woman, no shadows, just the soft hum of the city outside. But I knew it wasn't over. In the days that followed, the whispers became unbearable. They were with me constantly, no matter where I went. I'd see her reflection in windows, catch glimpses of her face in mirrors, hear her voice in the wind. I was losing my mind, haunted by a ghost that wouldn't let me go. Then, I received an email from the cruise line. Dear passenger, we are delighted to offer you a complimentary voyage on the MS Elysium as a thank you for your previous patronage. Please see the attached voucher for details. We hope to welcome you back aboard soon. I stared at the email, my hands trembling. A complimentary voyage? I hadn't signed up for anything. I didn't want to go back to that ship. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just a coincidence. The whispers had told me, come back to the ship. Now, as I pack my bags, I know this is it. I can feel her watching me, urging me to return. I don't know what will happen when I step aboard the MS Elysium again, but I do know one thing. She won't let me leave this time. I tried everything to avoid returning to the MS Elysium. I changed my phone number, disconnected from the internet, and even booked a last-minute trip inland, as far from the coast as possible. But no matter what I did, she found me. The whispers became more intense, filling every moment of silence. I could hear them in my sleep, in the hum of electronics, even in the white noise of crowded places. They never left me alone. And then the sightings started. Every reflection, every shadow, there she was. The woman in the old-fashioned gown, her pale, bloated face just visible in the corner of my eye. No matter where I turned, she was always there, watching, waiting. I couldn't run anymore. It was like I was tied to her by some invisible thread, being pulled back to the ship, pulled back to her. The night I finally gave in, I had the worst dream yet. I was standing on the deck of the MS Elysium, the moonless sky stretching endlessly above me. The ocean was unnaturally still, black as ink, reflecting nothing. I turned to see her, standing at the end of the deck, her back turned to me, her wet, matted hair clinging to her bony shoulders. She slowly began to walk toward me, her bare feet leaving wet, bloody footprints in her wake. As she approached, I tried to move, to run, but my feet were glued to the spot. Her cold, decayed hand reached out, and she whispered in that voice so familiar now, so twisted with centuries of agony, "It's time." I woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding. And sitting on my bedside table, where no one should have been able to leave it, was a boarding pass for the MS Elysium. It was real. The date of departure was in 2 days. I knew then that there was no escaping her. The ship had claimed me just as it had claimed her and countless others before us. The MS Elysium wasn't just a cruise ship. It was something else entirely. It was a vessel trapped between worlds, where the lost, the forgotten, and the cursed roamed. And it wanted me back. When I boarded the MS Elysium again, it felt like I was walking into my own grave. The ship looked the same on the outside, glamorous, bustling with excited passengers. But the moment I stepped inside, everything changed. The air was thick, heavy, like it was pressing down on me. The voices, the whispers, they were everywhere now, louder than ever. I could feel eyes on me, hundreds of unseen eyes, watching from the shadows lurking behind closed doors. I wandered the ship, numb with dread, knowing where I was headed. Deep down, I understood that I wasn't in control anymore. She was leading me, guiding me back to that forgotten part of the ship. As I passed other passengers, I noticed something strange. Their faces were blurred, like they weren't fully there. They moved through the ship as if in a trance, unaware of the whispers that surrounded them. It was as if they were sleepwalking through their own nightmares, unaware of the horrors lurking just beneath the surface. I found the door again. It was exactly as I remembered, heavy, weathered, with its rusted hinges and old-fashioned latch. My hand shook as I reached for the handle, my heart hammering in my chest. The door creaked open, revealing the familiar stairwell that led down into the bowels of the ship. I descended, each step echoing in the suffocating silence. The cold grew more intense, biting at my skin, making it hard to breathe. The air felt thick with something ancient and malevolent, like I was walking into the heart of the ship's curse. At the bottom of the stairs, I found the room again, the one with the portholes that looked out into the endless void. But this time, it wasn't empty. The woman was there, standing in the center of the room, her back to me once more. She turned slowly, her hollow eyes locking onto mine. There was no escape now. She was close, so close I could feel the cold radiating off her decayed skin.
BetterHelp's main mission as a brand is to make therapy more affordable.
Cold radiating off her decayed skin. Smell the brine that clung to her like death itself. Her lips parted, and in that same guttural, waterlogged voice she whispered, "You're home." The floor beneath me shifted, and I stumbled backward, the world spinning. The walls of the room began to warp, the portholes filling with a thick, swirling fog. I could feel the ship groaning, creaking as though it was sinking into the abyss. The woman moved closer, her twisted, skeletal hand reaching for me. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. As her hand touched my face, a wave of darkness engulfed me. I fell through the floor, through the ship, into the black void below. Cold water rushed around me, filling my lungs, dragging me down into the depths. I could hear the cries of others, hundreds of voices, all screaming in terror, trapped in this endless night. I was drowning, sinking deeper and deeper into the darkness, and there was no escape. When I woke, I was back on the deck of the MS Elysium. The ship was quiet, eerily so. The passengers were gone. The lights dimmed. I looked down at my hands, but they weren't mine. They were pale, waterlogged, and blue, just like hers. I was one of them now. I wandered the ship for what felt like days, lost in the maze of corridors, passing other souls, lost passengers, just like me. Some reached out, their eyes pleading for help, but I couldn't stop. I was trapped in this purgatory, cursed to wander the ship forever. The whispers were all around me now, louder than ever. They weren't coming from the ship anymore. They were coming from me. And I understood finally what had happened to the MS Elysium. It was never meant to return, and neither was I. Now, when I close my eyes, I can still hear them, the passengers of the MS Elysium, calling out from the depths, lost in the forgotten passage of time. I am one of them now, a ghost, forever bound to the ship. So, if you ever find yourself on the Mississippi Elysium, if you hear the whispers, if you see the woman in the gown, don't follow her. Because once you do, there's no way back. Months have passed since I boarded the MS Elysium for the last time, yet I am still here, or at least something of me is. I have lost all sense of time in this endless drifting purgatory. The once luxurious decks of the ship now stretch before me like a labyrinth of misery, an eternal cycle of shadowy corridors and decaying memories. The other souls, like me, drift through the ship, their forms faded and indistinct, each one trapped in their own personal nightmare. Sometimes, I see passengers from the real world. They pass through the ship, laughing and sipping drinks, oblivious to the horrors just beyond their sight. The newer ones don't sense us at first, but there are always those who hear the whispers, the sensitive ones. They feel the cold, catch a glimpse of us in the reflections, or, if they're unlucky, they see her. The woman in the gown. We, the ones bound to the Mississippi Elysium, we try to reach out, to warn them. But our voices are part of the whispers now, and all we can do is watch helplessly as they get pulled in deeper. Some wander too far, just as I did, drawn toward the ship's darkest secrets. Once they find the forgotten passage, it's already too late. I've come to understand more about the ship's true nature. It's not just a vessel for luxury cruises. It's a vessel for lost souls, a place where the boundaries between life and death, reality and nightmare, have collapsed. The MS Elysium, or whatever it was before, was cursed long before it became a cruise ship. It exists in a liminal space, drifting between worlds, collecting the lost, the forgotten, and the damned. The woman, the one who haunts these halls, was once its first victim, or so the other souls say. Some remember her as a socialite from the SS Marianne, a woman who mysteriously disappeared during the ship's final voyage in 1936. Others say she was a crew member who was murdered, her body thrown overboard during a storm. But whatever her story was in life, she has become something much darker in death. She's the anchor that keeps the ship trapped between worlds. The more people she claims, the stronger the curse becomes. Her cold touch binds us to the ship, preventing us from moving on, forcing us to remain in this twisted version of reality. And the longer we stay, the more we become like her, silent, decayed, and hungry for someone to take our place. One night, I encountered someone new. He was a young man, probably in his early 20s, wide-eyed with confusion and fear. He had wandered too far from his cabin, just like I had. I watched as he stepped into the forgotten passage, the same one that had trapped me all those months ago. I wanted to scream, to tell him to turn back, but my voice was part of the whispers now, just another sound in the cacophony of lost souls. He looked around, sensing something was wrong, but he was too curious. I could feel the air grow colder as she approached. The temperature in the passage dropped, the lights flickered, and the whispers grew louder. His breathing quickened, and I saw the terror in his eyes as he realized he wasn't alone. She stepped out of the shadows. The woman in the gown, her wet, tangled hair clinging to her face, her sunken eyes fixed on him. He stumbled back, his hands shaking, but he didn't run. He was frozen, just as I had been. Her decayed hand reached out, and I watched, powerless, as she touched his face. His scream echoed through the passage, and then, silence. He was gone. I felt a sickening pull in the pit of my stomach, a surge of guilt and helplessness. Another soul, trapped in the ship's web. Another passenger who would never leave. The days blend together now, each one indistinguishable from the last. I wander the ship like the others, forever searching for something I can't remember, forever haunted by the feeling that there's no escape. I no longer see the living passengers the way I used to. They fade in and out of my reality, appearing only when they come too close to the ship's darker corners. There are moments, fleeting and cruel, where I feel a sense of clarity, where I remember who I used to be, before the whispers, before the woman, before the MS Elysium. But those moments are brief, like a fading memory, and then I'm pulled back into the nightmare. The ship. It's alive in its own way. I feel its presence now, a malevolent force that feeds on the fear and despair of its passengers. It shifts and changes, its corridors stretching into infinity, its rooms warping into strange, impossible spaces. There's no map that can lead you out, no way to understand its full extent. It's like the ship it's...
If you made it this far into the video, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. You can hit the dislike button, it still don't matter to me. But hit it, subscribe, we're gonna finish the video.
Itself is a prison, designed to keep us lost and disoriented. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever see the end of it, if there's a way to break the curse, to free myself and the others from this eternal torment. But every time I think I've found a way out, the ship pulls me back, deeper into its heart.
Yes, sir. Y'all already know videos coming, man. I'm trying to have them coming back to back, but I'm trying. I gotta be motivated. I'm getting a little motivated, man, because the views going up, and I appreciate it. Subscribers going up, appreciate it. Likes, all that. I appreciate it, for real, for real. Yeah, let's go.